Hello there everyone. To those of you that have followed Shadow Paranormal over the last 9 or 10 years, you'll probably know that the first ever episode we filmed was in the Horseheath churchyard in the village of Horseheath. But that wasn't actually the first time I ever went out investigating places. The first time was probably, I'd say, about a year before that in 2011, and my first ever investigation, or ghost hunt shall I say, very easy to remember because it was on the 11th of the 11th 2011, so I'll never forget that date. And that's really when all of this kicked off, and today I'm actually in the village where that first investigation took place. I'm actually in Kennington in Suffolk. Now there were two areas in the village where I investigated on that particular evening. One of them's no longer with us at the moment, and for those of you who don't know, there was a workhouse in Kennington during the 1800s, and that was later on converted into a hospital, and I think that was demolished somewhere in the 90s, and in its place a sort of housing estate was built on one part of it, and the other part was sort of living accommodation for people with learning difficulties. Now when I investigated here, and we actually did an episode here in our first series in 2012, I got a bit carried away. The way I've worded things in that may be a bit disrespectful, because I basically referred to the place as a mental hospital. It wasn't, and you know, any offence caused by that, I do apologise. That was my young mind getting carried away with stuff, and obviously being influenced by, you know, asylum hauntings and stuff like that. But it was basically a housing estate where people who needed assistance living would live, and that place became derelict, and we investigated around there a few times. The actual site is now a housing estate, as you can see over there. So the site doesn't actually exist anymore, and I think that was probably, I don't know, I want to say about 8 years ago that was knocked down. Not entirely sure, but that was where it really kicked off, and luckily I've actually got some photos that I took on that very first night that I've managed to get hold of. Now we spent a number of evenings there with the original Shadow Paranormal team. It's very difficult in hindsight to know whether we actually did experience anything, and that's something that's going to pop up a few times in this video. And I'll say it now, there's nothing wrong with being wrong about things, as long as you learn from your mistakes. And there's certain things I've done in those early years of investigating, same as I just said about the misnaming the hospital there, which obviously wasn't an asylum, it wasn't a mental hospital, it was a place for assisted living. Same way I mentioned that, there's nothing wrong with being wrong as long as you learn from your mistakes. And like I said, there's methods I used in those early years that I would not dream of using now. All I've got as reference points is the footage I captured, but there's voices that were recorded on camera there's certain things that happened, and I've got no way of working out in my mind if that stuff was real or whether we'd misinterpreted results or various different things like that. But as for the hospital, I do think there was something very minor going on there. We certainly recorded some voices around there, although it was next to a housing estate, so those voices could have been carried on the wind. But again, that's sort of stuff that at the age of 15, 16, you're not really looking out for, you're not too conscious of, because you're so desperate to find a ghost. So yeah, it's very difficult to say, and seeing as it's not there anymore, we've really got no way of knowing, you know, whether there was anything occurring there or whether it was the overactive imagination of a teenager. But so I'm still proud of what I did in those early days, definitely. No need to be ashamed of it. I say the methods of investigation, you know, I've learnt a lot since then. I've moved forwards, and yeah, those videos are still up there to watch, but it's difficult really to say now how much of that stuff I could explain away and how much of it was actual inexplicable events happening. Now another place I visited on that same night was the churchyard in the village. We didn't actually go inside the church because it was locked up, but we investigated the churchyard. Now I'd heard from a few friends and a few local youths that the churchyard was haunted. I honestly don't know how much of that to believe. Very little of it. I don't want to, you know, call anyone liars, but you know, when you're early teenage years, you've got an overactive imagination, and I'm sure that would account for a lot of the so-called sightings and experiences had in the churchyard, but I don't know that for a fact, so but I'll just put that out there. What struck me though was that, unlike most churches, it seemed to be the newer area was the area where we had more activity. I did have an EMF meter at the time. It was a K2 meter, which I actually still have, first bit of kit I ever bought, and we were getting readings around this part of the churchyard in the new cemetery area. I have to say though, it wasn't till after, probably about a year later, I realised that if you've got a mobile phone on, the K2 meter can pick up signals from that, and I think that's probably what happened here, because we were filming on a mobile phone, so that would explain that. But we did capture some EVPs in this area.
Right, okay. Go back and get the thing.
Again, it's very difficult for me to say whether they are legit, because I can't remember the conditions they were recorded under. I can't remember if there's anyone shuffling their feet at the time, any other noises that could have been misinterpreted for a voice, but I think it'd be interesting for me to come back here at some point and do another small investigation just to see if there is anything going on here, or whether maybe some of the things were the result of an overactive imagination. And there is a legend that I never actually mentioned attached to the churchyard. You can see the row of trees. Let's go over to this wall. That big row of trees along there, it's said that there's a knight buried under each one of those, and that is a legend that's come up from these trees. Apparently one of the trees was actually blown over and there was human remains found underneath it at some point in history. How true that is, I don't know. There could have indeed been human remains, but as for actually being a burial place of a knight, doesn't seem to be much hard proof of that, other than the fact they are elms, and the Knights Templar did have belief that the elm trees had, well, elm wood had special powers. But yeah, just a little legend attached to the churchyard here, so I don't think there's an awful lot of truth to that, but it's interesting, you know, wherever you visit in the UK there's a legend that's been passed down through years. It's just an interesting thing to explore. So really that's all I've got to say on my visit to Kennington today. It's been interesting coming back and having a little look round. Like I say, I will definitely investigate the churchyard at night again, just to see if there is anything going on here, no matter how big or small. But I think coming back here, having a walk around and having time to mull over the things that I experienced both here and the hospital over the years, it's been interesting to come back and really see how a different perspective, how age, maybe wisdom, I don't know, but certainly age has put a different perspective on things, and you really sort of see how your mind perceives things when you're younger compared to when you're slightly older. But yeah, that's it for my visit to Kennington. Next you'll join me over in Horseheath, where my journey into exploring the unknown really kicked off. So here we are at the second location, and this is probably a little bit more familiar to some of you, seeing as we've done quite a few episodes here over the years. Most recent of which was in 2019, where we done an episode called the Horseheath Files, which was basically an accumulation of everything that I'd recorded here over the previous years, put into one video. So recommend you go and check that out to get a bit more of an in-depth look into what sort of stuff was experienced here. But yeah, I first came here in 2011, same sort of time as when I investigated Horseheath, although I have to say here we did capture a lot more concrete evidence than we did at Kennington. There was a lot of EMF readings around here, inexplicable, that seemed to be intelligent in some way. They would respond to asking questions, and they continued right through even after we'd discovered that phones can set off EMF detectors. So yeah, they were inexplicable EMF readings. I have brought a meter with me today, which I'll test out just to see during daylight hours if there's anything we can see that would cause that. There really has been all manner of activity occur in this churchyard. And the interesting thing is that about 5 years ago it stopped. I've been here since, and there's been absolutely nothing. No EMF readings, no voices recorded, no strange events. Even the feeling here changed, and I've never been able to understand why that was. Obviously in the past hauntings have stopped, but it was almost like night and day. It just one day, that was it. No more activity here. So that was very, very strange. But I do love this place, and because I investigated here so much in the early days, you know, 2011, 2012, it does have sort of a special place for me. Now, in all honesty, I can't remember why I ever came here in the first place. I've got a funny feeling it was at school. There was someone that said, "Have you been to the churchyard in Horseheath?" And obviously I hadn't, and he said, "Oh, it's very creepy in there at night." There was no more on it other than that, so it was literally just a very spontaneous visit here the first time, and it paid off, because we, you know, years later we were still experiencing and recording stuff here. Yeah, I don't really remember there being any big report of a haunting or someone saying they've had something major happen here. Again, I suppose it's probably very much the same as what I mentioned at Keddington with the reports of hauntings there. It's you know, when you're young, any dark, spooky place is haunted. You know, that's just the way your brain works. But this one actually was. And like I say, I was able to document stuff here all throughout the years afterwards as well. Interestingly enough, for the most part, this area around here has been fairly quiet. It always seems to have been this pathway here and up to, I suppose, that area up there has been the most prominent areas we've recorded things, but we've had the odd bit around here and in the porch as well, but certainly a lot less around this area. Again, the reason why we may not have had much around here is because there's obviously houses right next door to the church here, and generally I've tried to steer a bit clear of this side just to not disturb anyone. But here we go round the other side, back where we started over there. This tree's grown up a lot even since I've been coming here. I remember there was a bit of older footage that that grave there, that it was clearly visible, but it's sort of being swallowed up by that tree now. Other thing I found interesting about the investigations here, and it's probably going to be something that a lot of people might question my sanity now, is because we used the spirit box here back in the early days. And for those of you who don't know, I've recently done some experiments with the spirit box and basically came to the conclusion that what's coming through are radio waves. There's nothing unusual with it, or unusual. However, one of the very few places I've been where I've had stuff come through that I think would give credibility to it working is here. It was the same female voice that came through time and time again. She'd speak whole sentences to me through the spirit box. My name was said countless times here. There was so much stuff that came through the spirit box, which is the only time I've really been anywhere and sort of thought maybe it does work, since I've done those experiments. Obviously I do wonder, because I do want to come back here and do an investigation at night, do wonder if I will try the spirit box just to see if I can maybe tap into what was here, or who was here, and see if we can get anything else, because like, they were extraordinary, the voices that came through then. All in all, I don't know how many investigations I've done here over the years. I mean, we're going back to probably November, December of 2011, right up until about 2018 was the last time I've done anything here. So yeah, you've got a long time, 7 years of investigations here. Say even I've done one a month, you know, that's a lot. Not every time was active, but the vast majority there'd be something, or even if there wasn't, there would be a very, very intense feeling here. Which I'd say since the activity stopped, that feeling's disappeared as well. So I do want to come back here and just see, because I haven't been for a long while, maybe whatever is here has had enough time to recuperate itself, gain more energy. So yeah, I will pop back here one evening, see if I can record anything. But while I'm here, I'm going to get out the EMF meter. Brought with me the tri-field TF2, just to see if I can get any readings that are a bit strange, and while it's light we can have a look around and see if there's anything that could be causing strange readings here. Now, for anyone who doesn't know why we'd use a device that detects electromagnetic frequencies, it's been long theorised, and a lot of people have documented a link between paranormal events and magnetic and electric fluctuations, whether the spirits either are able to interact with the electromagnetic field, whether they've got a field of their own, but there does seem to be some kind of a link, and what these do is detect that. So we're going to switch it on. So at the moment we're measuring about 0.1 milligauss, which is a measurement of magnetic fields. So this pathway here was the place where we had the majority of the activity and the readings on here as well, actually. We're not getting anything really that's substantial. And 0.1, 0.2, that's nothing really. That's not picking up on anything at all. So no, there doesn't seem to be any strange readings in the churchyard here, so that'll be interesting if we do come back, try and interact with what's here, whether we'll get any readings and whether we can sort of get any intelligent communication through that. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've been meaning to go back to both of these places for a long while and just have a walk around, but I thought I'd do a video on it as well, just so you guys can see how my opinions have changed on things over the years. Just have a nice look at the places during daylight, really, because both of these places, both the two in Kennington and here, you know, have been crucial into developing myself as to who I am today as an investigator. I'd say Kennington, I think, was slightly less going on there, and it's very difficult to validate much of that because there's only a handful of investigations there, to be honest, compared to Horseheath. And not to mention, it's very difficult with the camera footage we've got from there to try and see if anything was you know, causing EVPs, whether we were shuffling our feet, which sounds like a voice on camera, or, you know, but, you know, after another night there, see if we can pick up anything. Like I say, I'll come back here as well, see if we can record any activity. Until then, take care.